I think it's as many bases covered as we can have. Hey guys, it's almost midnight.
Noise. You hear that? Yeah. Punch, can you hear that?
I'm one channel. I'm listening to that hole.
You hear that?
Like a plane almost, but...
No, it's not a plane. It's not a plane and it's not thunder. It's like a... Do you hear that? You hear a kid? Yeah. Is there a kid over there or something?
And everybody heard a little girl laughing.
Yeah. Big breeze.
EMF detector's being a little funny. Getting funny little spikes on it.
Ponch, you listening to that back there?
Huh?
Can you hear anything coming out of that?
That microphone's bad. Yeah, it's static. Nothing but static.
All the equipment's getting buggy.
The mic that Ponch placed in a tree, completely blown out. He's got no explanation for it.
Well, whatever Casey's trying to get to that mic in the tree and see if we can figure out why it's being buggy.
Josh. Hey, I'm at the mouth of where that tree is. I'm getting a heat reading inside this thing.
There's some type of orbs back here. I don't know what it is.
Holy shit.
What do you got?
I saw nothing at the very front. Poked in a little bit deeper and I saw something deep. Everything obviously in here is fairly cold. It's all green. This was red. Red ball sitting I don't know how far deep in there. And all of a sudden it went up and to the right. Disappeared. That's when I called you.
You hear that?
That was interesting.
Guys,
Did you see something, Ponch?
couldn't tell if it was... It looked like I saw someone walking.
Hello? Hello?
Brad, this is Josh. Come in.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
So we got something bumping around in the woods back here that sounds animal-y. What do you got up there?
About all of us saw a figure walk from the ruins across that opening stretch and back off towards that tree where we came from. It was like a white figure. That's all any of us could make out.
Okay, listen. Let's just try and retrieve this mic, and then we can all rendezvous back out by the ruins. Case and I are going to go in and see if we can't pull this mic out of this tree.
All right, copy that.
This is Josh. I'm retrieving the mic. 1222. Shutting it down. So we all heard this kind of low rumbling. We all got kind of breezy. We all heard this like sound of children. And then you picked up these two orbs on the...
Yeah, two separate orbs.
And then we went back there and suddenly all the electronics just totally crapped out. And then you guys saw what out here? You saw a figure?
We're standing over there and looking this way, and I saw baby coming from the edge of that ruin. It looked like something totally in white.
And do we have a beat on Jacob and the other guy? We know that they're over this way. It was fleeting, or it was like...
No, it was like a
slow, steady, almost...
But neither of you had a handheld camera?
I had a handheld camera. I can roll it back, but it's from back there. These things.
But I mean, did you point the handheld at it? Did you try and get
We
it?
got it at the end because he was closer to where
Right.
you were. And we saw it and we were just like...
I don't know what I got.
And off this guy, you heard what? Static? Or nothing?
Static.
Just static.
All right, so we'll check.
Well, we gotta peel through all of our footage.
For the figure.
For the figure, for this footage, that footage, we gotta...
Did you get the audio of the giggling child?
I didn't hear it.
But that was something, I mean, I heard it for sure. You heard it. Did you hear it, Case? So 4 of us heard it. Our investigation on Pemba Island left my team and I with hours of video footage and audio recordings to review and more than a few difficult questions to answer. We left the island and made the long journey back to Los Angeles, where we set to work on searching for clues to explain the mysterious phenomenon we encountered during our investigation. For expert assistance, we sent our recordings to Dan Mawhinney. His experience in reviewing recordings of possible paranormal activity far outweighs my own. He sat down to give us his interpretation of our footage.
I found a couple interesting things within the clips. One was when you're approaching the tree to place the wireless microphone, there seems to be a sound or a voice. It seems to be responding to you walking in and placing that microphone. It's within the range of a human voice. It's on the top range. It's definitely a human guttural, growly vocalization.
Yeah.
My initial thought was it was something saying "get out."
And what about from the recording inside the tree?
This was a wireless microphone that was used. There were insects within the tree as well. The gain on the microphone was turned up. This leads to potential interference. We can't positively say that paranormal activity caused the pops and the clicks and the static that was heard.
It was tough for us to hear on tape, but we also heard what sounded like children were laughing or playing, and we also heard this low, long-sustaining rumbling.
Yeah. It's not thunder, it's like
The interesting thing about the rumbling sound to us is that planes don't fly at night over Pemba, so there's no aircraft in the skies. And it was a clear night, it was a starry night, and so we're ruling out weather as well, and it was a really distinct low rumbling sound.
I did hear trails of it throughout the conversations, and I also wondered, if it could be an airplane, if it could be a train.
Yeah, I mean, this is such an isolated place. No trains, no power, no electricity, and certainly there's only one airstrip on the island, and they don't have any flyovers at night at all.
But you could also consider it within the Earth, plates shifting, that is something that could emanate up.
Right.
That would be something seismically you could go back and document.
Okay.
It is an anomaly, and it's definitely out of place with what you were all there experiencing.
I always favor logical explanations to mysterious events, but I have to say, even I'm skeptical that what the crew and I heard was of seismic origin. Now I wanted to show Dan the footage of the orbs Casey captured on the thermal imager. We see it right here, and then we continue to see it, and then it kind of goes up this way and kind of vanishes.
It definitely kind of floated and went up. It wasn't like an animal that was scurrying. It just kind of was there, and the photo went up and it was gone.
there's some type of orbs back here. I don't know what it is.
Holy f***.
I would say this is a critical piece of evidence.
Do you typically see heat signatures with spirits and things?
Usually that happens in an inhuman situation, meaning we're involving something that is demonic. It does seem to be something more on the darker side of things.
As enticing as this little red orb may be for some, I'm not completely convinced that we're dealing with a dangerous and evil entity. For me, the most compelling piece of evidence we brought back from the ruins is an image that my crew and I could not explain. Let's show you this last clip. One of our infrared cameras picked this up. I'll just let you take a look at it and let me know what your thoughts are. We see something on the left side of this camera that looks almost translucent that just appears and then vanishes.
How long into this camera's filming did this happen? Was it a 20-minute segment?
These are a motion detector, so this just flipped on, and that's all it caught.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of the crew was accounted for elsewhere?
For sure. That we know for sure. We know that there's no possibility that someone's walking around.
Yeah, I've looked at a lot of infrared footage and seen a lot of things, either false anomalies or real ones, and this is much more impressive.
Based on this visual evidence, based on the audio that we hear, do you think that there's a promising chance that we're looking at something paranormal here?
If you have the scientific proof of something happening, you have the personal experiences of others as well as something happening, and you have a history of something happening. That combination usually puts out a good, solid, decent piece of evidence that is hard to rip apart. We always go in looking skeptically at everything because a lot of evidence can be faked. In this situation, I would say that most likely this is paranormal.
The island of Pemba is home to rich folklore and deep-rooted spiritual beliefs. Did we have a paranormal encounter? Jacob promised us that at the stroke of midnight, ghosts would reveal themselves to us. And with equipment malfunction, strange sounds, disembodied heat signatures, and a disturbing image on our infrared cameras, it would certainly seem that something was trying to get our attention. I know it got mine. With our investigation of the ghosts of Pemba Island complete, we set our focus on a story from the far reaches of the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, where nomadic yak herders tell tales about a creature they call the Mongolian deathworm. Now, if you've ever seen the movie Tremors with Kevin Bacon, then you get the idea. Giant sandworms rise up from the earth and attack us humans. The nomads in Mongolia describe their slitherers the same way, and add that the beasts come out at night, spit lethal acid, and electrocute their prey on contact. It all sounded like science fiction to me, but scores of recent reports have made headlines in Mongolia and have me wondering what people are seeing in the sand. So I pushed aside the thought of a giant worm spitting acid in my face, and our lead cameraman Casey, our producer Brad, and our main assistant Araceli packed up our equipment. Together we headed to the ends of the earth to investigate the Mongolian deathworm. Our journey to the southern Gobi Desert in Mongolia began in Los Angeles, where we flew all the way to Mongolia's capital, Ulaanbaatar. The deathworm, or algoi horhai as locals call it, means blood-filled intestine. The worm is reported to be more than 4 feet long, and though most sightings have been recorded in summer months, these new eyewitness reports were being generated in the dead of winter. What were people seeing in this isolated part of the world? I intended to find out. Traveling to Mongolia is like traveling to another century. This is the least populated nation on Earth, and maybe, just maybe, home to one of the planet's least friendly worms. I decided to search out the word on the street about the deathworm. Could I try it? You've heard of the Mongolian deathworm? Not only were many of the locals true believers in the deathworm, many people I talked to told me about a village deep in the southern part of the Gobi that had recently been completely abandoned by its residents. Apparently, the deathworm was to blame. This piece of information was key. With the daunting vastness of the Gobi, I decided to focus my search for the deathworm in the region of this evacuated town. Before heading out into the desert, I met with the director of the Mongolian Institute of Sciences to find out what he thought people were seeing in the sand and what he knew of these recent sightings. My interpreter Chinzo translated. Does he think that there's any chance at all, that this deathworm could be real?
So he says there's no deathworm.
Are there animals living in the Gobi that people are mistaking for this legend?
He's making a sample of some insects called bombardier, They spoke out an acid.
And so he thinks that's the genesis for this story, that
can be, yeah.
That because there is an insect that has this acidic discharge, that this has become kind of a story that's passed along.
Yeah.
The doctor said he believed that nomads, fearful of many things in the desert, concocted the story of the deathworm years ago to teach younger generations to be wary of anything that moved in the sand. Not a bad idea for any worried parent. But that still didn't explain the numerous reports over the years that described these giant sandworms in nearly exactly the same way. And as for the evacuated town, the doctor could offer no explanation. My mission was clear. Early the next morning, I wrangled a couple of 4x4s that would carry me and my team far into the desert in search of this mysterious village.
You be the tour, it's going to be paved. The rest of the way is going to be rural. You're basically not going to have any paved roads. We're going to be making our own roads, or we'll be GPSing it.
Navigating by GPS, it would take my team and I more than 2 days of continuous off-roading to reach our final destination, assuming we didn't get lost or drop a tranny off one of these rickety vehicles along the way. If all went well, we would stop in Dalangazad, one of the few outposts in the desert, to refuel the jeeps and our stomachs. The drive seemed like a breeze at first. Sure, the scenery was a little Spartan, but at least the highway was paved. Until it wasn't. Just busted a tire here, but luckily it's a densely populated area, so plenty of service stations around here. Just took a little elbow grease and we were on our way. The hours went by like sand through an hourglass, and after the better part of a day making tracks through the Gobi, we came upon a family of nomads who were nice enough to invite us into their yurt to chew the fat. Quite literally, it turned out.
That's sheep.
Sheep?
Yeah.
It looks delicious. Eat it? Oh boy. Chinzo, will you ask him if he's familiar with the story of the algoi horhai? Does he think that I'm in great danger to look for this thing?